Yes, it is.
Okay. I want to thank Rabbi Laniado for giving me the opportunity to speak. Usually it's hard for me, when I speak, sometimes people say to me, Rabbi Brander, when you speak, what you said, it's hard for me to go to sleep at night. I said, why is that? You're thinking about what I'm saying? Because no, when I sleep during the day, then it's hard for me to fall asleep at night. When you speak, usually I fall asleep during the day. But at least now, if you fall asleep now, I don't feel bad at all. Just try not to snore. This, because then it's going to make it harder for other people to sleep, So just the best thing is you could fall asleep, and it's a special zchut to be here. Rabbi Laniado is a tremendous visionary, and he has taught the rest of the Shul Rabbanim, you never ever say no. There are no limits. In Rabbi Laniado's world, there are no limits. It's a very beautiful thing. Who cares in the middle of construction? Hundreds and hundreds of people come every day. It's unbelievable. It's a big zchut. And those people that appreciate Rabbi Laniado, you don't understand half of who he is. And I wish him a bracha. They should continue to build, not just beautiful buildings, but build neshamot in a very wonderful way.
Amen.
Now the Ashkenazim are always a little bit behind. We don't really, Hoshana Rabba is not something that we do. We do we do slichot for like a half hour, before Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. We do, we're a little bit more chilled. But the Sfardim, Hoshana Rabba, it's geschmack. I'm not going to translate my Yiddish phrases, but I will say it's very special to see people coming out to learn on this very holy and beautiful day, beautiful evening, Hoshana Rabba. I want to share with you, over the next few minutes, I want to share with you a deep idea which is based on the Rambam. The Rambam was a great Sephardic rabbi, and I'm not going to say Ashkenazic, even though we try to claim credit for him. But I want to share with you a deep Torah from the Rambam, and I want to just ask a question first. A question, the Rambam, if you have something to say, please feel free. I know I'm in front of a camera, but I try not to pay attention to that. I want to learn Torah with you, and I want to hear what you have to say. And if you get into it, then it's better, there's more of a chance you'll stay up. So here is the question I'm going to ask you. Then we're going to learn the Rambam inside and ask you another question. The first question is, we know that even though in the Torah it's called Chag HaSukkot, but the rabbis gave it a different name. And the name for the holiday of Sukkot that we say in the Tefillah is not Sukkot. What do we call it? Ziman Simchatenu. The time of our happiness, which is interesting because the mitzvah of Simcha is also with what? Also where? Feel free to respond. Also Pesach. Also Shavuot. So why is Sukkot called Zman Simchatenu? It's a very obvious question. The mitzvah of Simcha is with regard to all of the Shalosh Regalim. Why is Sukkot called Dafka, specifically Zman Simchatenu? That's a very basic question. Let's learn inside a beautiful piece of Rambam. You don't have it in front of you, but I'm going to read it, and I'm going to ask one very interesting question. I think it's interesting. And if you disagree with me, okay, that's all right. But here's what the Rambam says. Af al pi, shekol ha-moadot, mitzvah lismoach behen, even though all the holidays, there's a mitzvah to be happy. B'chag ha-sukkos ha'isa b'mikdash yom simcha yitera. On Sukkot there was even a greater happiness. And the Rambam says, Shenemar samachtem lefnei Hashem Elokechem shivat yamim. As it says in the Torah, you should be happy before Hashem your God for 7 days. And the Rambam says, what was the nature of this happiness? What was the nature of this simcha? And I'm skipping a little bit in the Rambam. Listen to what he says. Hechalil. This is the way they used to make the simcha. And the Rambam is going to describe for us the simchat beit hashoeva, which literally means what? The simcha of the water drawing ceremony. And some of you are familiar with the idea that usually in the Beit HaMikdash, when they would pour something on the Mizbeach other than blood, what would they pour? What would they normally pour? Other than blood, what would they? Wine. Wine? Wine. They'd pour wine on the Mizbeach. Nische Yayin, right? Oil, different type, but wine. That's what the nisuch of hayayin. But on Sukkot, they also did mayim, nisuch hamayim, and that was a halacha l'Moshe misinai, or it's hinted to in the Torah. And the water drawing ceremony became a huge party. And Jews know how to party. And the truth is, if you were to go now to Yerushalayim, maybe not right now, but if you'd have gone in the last few days to Yerushalayim, there are amazing parties throughout Israel, hours and hours and hours, some throughout the night, where Bnei Yeshiva, they dance literally hours and hours in the Rambam, and that's really commemorating what the Rambam tells us. They would have basically a party for 7 days. The Rambam says, what was this party? Hechalil makel menagnim bikinor. They would play the recorder, and then they would use the harp, uvinivalayim, uvimitzaltayim, the cymbals and the other different types of instruments. People would bring the instruments that they knew how to play. So I don't know what that's called, but everybody comes together. They bring their own bongo, right? The whole session. People just bring their instruments. Those that knew how to sing beautifully would sing. And the Rambam said, by implication, is saying those that didn't know how to sing wouldn't sing. Baruch Hashem. And the Rambam says, and then they would dance, and they would clap, and they would beat, and they would move. Everybody would dance. And then the Rambam says, and even though I just told you, listen carefully, even though I just told you that they would use clapping and beating and instruments and dancing, even though I just gave you this beautiful description, and this party went on for basically 6 or 7 nights, depending upon how Shabbat fell in, the Rambam says that even though the Simcha did not dochesh Shabbat and Yom Tov, that's true, but other than that, the Rambam says, mitzvah laharbot b'simcha zu. However, who was invited to the party? Who was allowed to dance? Who was allowed to dance? The Rambam says, "V'lo hayu osin ota amei haaretz." They didn't just allow regular people to dance. Ela gidolei chachmei Yisrael. Who were the dancers? The rabbis. Now, again, I'm an Ashkenazi rabbi. Ashkenazi rabbis are dancing challenged. We are not created to dance, Ashkenazi rabbis. I have a few Sephardic friends. Before my kids were married, I did a private dancing lesson with them. I'm not going to audition in front of the camera, right? But, we are cadence challenged. We are dancing deficient. We are beaten by beats. We are not this doesn't work for Ashkenazim, right? But the rabbis, the Rambam says, who would dance? Gedolei Chachmei Yisrael, the great of the wise men of Israel, the Rashi HaYeshivot, and the heads of the yeshivas, the HaSanhedrin, and the judges, the HaChasidim, and the pious ones, the HaZikanim, and the elders, the Anshe Maisehem, and the Tzadikim. They would be the ones Shayu Merakdin, and Mesapkin, and Menagdim, and Mesamchin, B'migdash, B'mei Chag HaSukkos. They would be the ones that would be dancing. Aval, the Rambam says, Kol Ha'am, but the rest of the people, the teenagers, the one with the young legs, what would they be doing? They'd be watching from the stands. They would just watch. Kol Ha'am, Ha'anoshim, Ha'anoshim, Kulam, Boim, Liros, the men's section, women's section, and who would be the dancers? The old men, the Talmidei Chachamim, the Rosh Yeshiva, the Sanhedrin, but the regular Jews with the young, fresh legs, they would be in the stands. Basically, I would say it was like the RDL, the Rabbis Dance League, and there was like a stadium. It's like a stadium, and people are watching the rabbis dance. And I have a simple question: why? On Simchat Torah, I'm already recruiting people. I'm saying to young Chevra, I said, we need you, Simchat Torah. Because why do you need me? I said, because you have young legs. And we need koach. We need young Chevra. But the Rambam is telling us that they had only the AKs. That's Yiddish for Alta Kackers. Only the old people, the rabbis. Now the truth is, some rabbis dance well. And There's something to be said about that. And the Gemara goes into detail how the great rabbis would juggle, how the great rabbis would have incredible abilities, even physical abilities. But it's such an obvious question. Why does the Rambam tell us, really based on the Gemara, that the rest of the Jews would not be allowed to dance? It was a very limited guest list for the dancers, the singers, and the people playing the instruments. Why? What's wrong with allowing everybody to dance? I mean, it's a party. Everybody comes to the party. You hear the question? It's an obvious question. Any thoughts on that? I know you're not used to me, rabbis, asking you for real answers, but I really, what do you think? I'll take two or three possible answers. What do you say? From any of the men here? Any of the...
They had the experience. They were better dancers.
The men were the rabbis, the old rabbis who sat and learned the whole day. They were better dancers. Okay, that's among the more pathetic answers I've ever heard in my whole life. But I still love you. Okay. Okay, yeah, okay, fine. The truth is, what did you say?
The only thing I can say is that the rabbis really, through the learning, they're really the one who understand why they should be in the middle dancing and be happy because of this particular simcha that for this particular day.
Let me ask you a question. For lulav and etrog, do you know all the Kabbalistic reasons for lulav and etrog? Do you know all the Kabbalistic reasons? Do you shake the lulav and etrog?
Yeah.
Why? We shouldn't let you. Only the rabbis should shake the lulav and etrog. What about matzah? Do you know all the Kabbalistic reasons for matzah?
No.
Do you eat the matzah?
Yeah.
So only if you understand all the deep reasons you get to do the mitzvah?
That's why we're asking the question. That's why
No, I'm asking you.
I mean, I'm returning like
Okay, good. I don't know how it works here. Am I allowed to call him? Yeah, what do you say?
It's like Michal and David. When Michal saw David dancing, she said, "You're making a fool of yourself." And he said, "I want to make a fool of myself for Hashem Shemayim."
So, okay, beautiful. We're going to get to that Rambam. That's the next piece of the Rambam, also a very beautiful comment about Michal and David, the famous story, which I'll get to in a minute. But that's a question. Here's a question like, why only the rabbis allowed to dance? We don't ever restrict mitzvos to the rabbis. That's a different religion. In our religion, everybody is involved in service of Hashem. Everybody's involved. You hear the question? I want to share with you another point before I go. I'm going to give an answer. I'll give an answer. I want to share with you just a tiny bit of the diary of a great rabbi. He was Ashkenazi. You'll forgive me for that. He was a great Hasidic rabbi, and he was at the young age was the rabbi of 8,000 students. In his mid-20s, he was known as the Piazetzner Rebbe. He was the rabbi of a town which is about 30, 40 miles off of Warsaw, and then he became a great rabbi in Warsaw itself. He was a brilliant man and a very deep spiritual man, and he was killed in the Holocaust. And we have most of his writings that were discovered after the Holocaust in a floorboard in an apartment. And this, what I'm going to read to you now, is the translation of a diary, a spiritual diary that the Rebbe himself wrote about himself. It's very rare that we get, most of his svarim are beautiful divrei Torah. This is about his own spiritual struggles. So I'm getting to read the diary of one of the great rabbis of our generation. And I'm sharing it with you. And listen to what he says. This is the translation. When a Jewish person reveals from within himself his inherent holiness with which to serve his Creator, then every act that he does for God, even self-initiated service, becomes holy. I'm going to explain that. And he describes, he was talking about an event in his life that they were having a Sefer Torah dedication. You know, like we have Baruch Hashem in Los Angeles. I'll tell you a story before I finish with this. It's another story. I had the great zchut of being several times at the home of Aaron Leib Steinman Zatzal, a great Rebbe. A great rabbi, one of the great rabbis of the generation. He passed away not that long ago. And one time, I was at his home for a Shacharit Minyan, and there was a fellow who was dedicating a Sefer Torah. Rav Steinman was about 100 years old at the time. And he was given the honor of writing a letter. And after he wrote the letter, it took him a long time to write the letter. It's not easy when you're 100 years old to write the letter. And afterwards, he spoke for a little bit. And he said, this Sefer Torah replaces one of the lost Sifrei Torah. We lost many Sifrei Torah in the Holocaust. He said, this Sefer Torah replaces one of those lost Sifrei Torah. He said, but since the time of the Holocaust, we have replaced as many that have been lost. We have replaced Kefel Kiflei Kiflayim. We've replaced 4, 8, 16 times the amount that have been lost. We lost thousands of Sifrei Torah, but since then we've replaced them many more than have been lost. We replaced. Because we live in a beautiful time in Jewish history. We don't appreciate what a time we live in. Where every week in Los Angeles there's another new Hachnasat Sefer Torah. And in our communities around the world, building. Jewish children going to school, thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of Jewish children. It's an incredible time that we live in. And Rav Aaron Leib Steinman said the difference is that this Sefer Torah that I'm writing in now, this Sefer Torah will have the merit to greet Mashiach. Those are amazing words. I'll never forget that. So says the Rabbi at a Sefer Torah dedication that probably that Sefer Torah is not around anymore. And the Rabbi describes how there was this great simcha. And he was thinking how he really wanted to bring his whole body in the simcha, bring his whole body. Remember, a great Hasidic Rabbi. And he says, I wasn't sure. And I decided I really wanted to do what's called a somersault. A great Hasidic Rebbe. I wanted to do a somersault. And I was going back and forth. Frequently a Jew's yearning is ignited far beyond his normal level of service. The idea came to me to somersault as a lowly peasant. He's a great Rebbe. Rebbes don't usually do somersaults. But if I wanted to do something, I wanted to rejoice in awe and dance with all my might. I started preparing to attend the Sefer Torah dedication. And I said, I'm going to rejoice and dance with all my might. And then I said, no, I don't know. What are people going to think about? What are they going to think of me? Do you really think it matters to God whether or not you do somersault and perhaps you might even hurt yourself or damage your health? Will you not look like, listen to this is his inner conversation, right? We often have inner conversations with ourselves. Should we? Shouldn't we? Will you not look like a fool doing somersaults in front of all those people? And then the Rebbe says, from the depths of my heart, I screamed at my inner voice. God should destroy you, forces of evil. This is no time for second thoughts. Some people, especially the rabbis in the Zoom, will appreciate. Sometimes when I want people to dance, I'll go over to people and say, come dance. They give you that look like I don't, no, you dance. They're not from the dancers. Like they like being on the side, they don't. Why should I get myself sweaty and dirty? Go to a wedding, you have those people that are they're sitting down, they're enjoying the main course, everybody else dancing, right? So the Rebbe's describing his inner dilemma. Should he do this? I have a friend of mine. He's a very special Jew. Doesn't live in this community anymore. He was a great rabbi, a very special rabbi. And when he'd come to the wedding, he wore a hat, he wore a jacket, a tie, a whole thing. But by the time he finished dancing, that hat was gone, the jacket was gone, the tie was gone. Sometimes the shirt was certainly not tucked in. He danced with such simcha. He danced with this incredible power. And I remember one of the other rabbis said to him, maybe it's too much. Maybe it's too much. Listen to what the Rebbe says. He says, to do some act of self-sacrifice for God is what I want. And you have only helped me to find it. The very act, and he's speaking to himself, the Yetzer, the very act that you seek to intimidate me from doing because of health or personal reasons, that is the act that I choose to do. From that moment on, this unsophisticated act became for me a holy service. It was clear in my eyes, and I surrendered myself completely to it. And I did this simple somersault. Listen to these words. It goes, no more did I imagine any simple somersault, but now Hashem's altar shone before me. The place where the procession was about to pass became hallowed with flames of holy fire. Rabosai, I'm going to make this point again. He's speaking about a simple somersault. You can go to some circus and see people do somersaults. The Rebbe's talking like it's a Kedas Yitzchak. He's talking like he's like a Mizbeach. You think, well, what is he smoking? Chas v'sholem. No, you understand. I'm saying something very serious now. I'm joking, but I'm saying something very serious. The Rebbe is teaching us in revealing to us his inner. He doesn't have to reveal to us his inner conversation. That for great people, there's nothing that's simple. You understand? There's a halacha. The Rambam brings this down that non-Jews are allowed to bring sacrifices. Non-Jews are allowed to bring karbanot. But what karbanot are they allowed to bring? The ones that are completely burnt, or the ones that you can eat from? The Rambam says the non-Jews are allowed to bring karbanot, but they have to bring olot, completely burnt. Because only a Jew knows how to eat for Hashem. You see, dancing, and I know that I haven't seen this in a long time, but I grew up as a teenager, and I know they used to have something called rock concerts. They still have this? They still have these things occasionally? And then there would be like dancing, a lot of dancing that went on. And the people who were dancing, they weren't necessarily Jews. Dancing is very powerful. I can't even begin to explain and describe how powerful is dancing. You go to a wedding. What's a good wedding? And now I understand that when you go to a wedding, there's food. I get that there's food. Usually by the Persian weddings, there's at least 5 or 6 meals. That's the way. They have the fruit, and then they have the Ashkenazim leave, then they take the real food. With the kubita and the butter, the whole thing going on. There's a lot of food. But all good weddings are not defined by the food. It's defined by what? The dancing. Dancing can happen at rock concerts. And it could be very selfish. And it could be totally absorbed in one's own reality. Or dancing can be a way of, as David HaMelech says, Kol atzmotai tomarna Hashem mi kamocha. You can take all your physical reality, your remach ivarim and shisagidim, your 248 limbs and your 365 sinews, and you dance. When you dance, all you're thinking is, I'm doing this for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm taking every part of who I am. And I've seen this a few times. There's a rabbi in the East Coast, his name is Rabbi Steinwurzel. He's a man in his 70s. He has a Hasidic hat, and he has a long coat, he has a long beard, and he does a full somersault, or I don't know exactly if it's called somersault, but he turns his whole body around, and he stays with the hat on. The hat stays, I don't know how he does exactly. And I see him dancing in front of the Chatan and Kala. It's an amazing thing. It's like he's in this world, but he's not in this world. You know what I'm talking about? Sometimes you see great people when they're dancing. They're in this world, but it's love. It's incredible ruchniut. Incredible spirituality. You know, the holiday of Sukkot is a very interesting thing. We call it Zman Simchaseinu, but I want to ask you a simple question. What is the mitzvah of Sukkot about? You go into the Sukkah and you sleep. Do you know that you get credit for a mitzvah when you sleep? How often is that the case? How often is that the case? You get credit for a mitzvah when you sleep? You go to sleep in the Sukkah and it's considered to be a mitzvah. You eat in the Sukkah, it's a mitzvah. Right? You schmooze in the Sukkah, it's a mitzvah. As long as it's not Lashon Hara. Of course, if you learn in the Sukkah, what is Sukkot? It's Zman Simchatenu. But what is the Jews' manner of Simcha? I want you to hear this point. It's so important in our own spirituality. Of course, if I tell you that Yom Kippur is a holy day, that would not be a great revelation to you. If I were to tell you that learning Torah is a big mitzvah, I think you get that. That davening is a beautiful thing, I think you get that. But there's another aspect to what it means to be a Jew. And that is that everything that you do in life, the way you eat, the way you sleep, the way you talk, the way you walk, that also is part of Avodat Hashem. And sometimes you need to see how great people do things that you wouldn't call great. to see how a great person, how they dance, how they eat. There was a very great rabbi, passed away not that long ago. His name was Rav Chaim Pinchas Scheinberg. Rav Chaim Pinchas Scheinberg was married for close to 80 years. He was married at the age of 22. He was born in America, as was his wife. And he decided to go to Europe to learn in the great yeshiva known as the Mir Yeshiva. The Mir Yeshiva was before World War II. The Mir Yeshiva was in a little small town in Poland. And it was a very backwater. He came from America in the 1920s, which had electricity and running water and bathrooms. And he went to the Mir, which was a very backwater place. And his wife was came from a wealthy family, the Herman family. And she lived in New York in the 1920s. And they went to Europe for 5 years. And they knew the Americans were coming. So when they knew it, so you know what they did? They decided they were going to give them, they gave them like an apartment or like a little shack with one room with like an electric bulb. Like a 15-watt bulb. Like that was like the fancy thing. And meanwhile, Mrs. Herman, Mrs. Scheinberg, she brought an iron from New York. And she plugged the iron in, and the whole town blew. Not the house, the whole block, the whole town blew. They weren't used to an iron from Sears, you know? And for 5 years, she lived with that Mesirut Nefesh. And then they came back to America. He was a great tzaddik. And then Rav Scheinberg went to Eretz Yisrael in 1965. And if you read about the stories, about the love that they had for each other, and when Rebbetzin Scheinberg passed away, several times before she passed away, they were married for close to 80 years. Rav Scheinberg walked into Rav Scheinberg used to have all the tzitzis. Some people, he had all those tzitzis. Rav Scheinberg walked into his wife's room and he started singing. Zacharti lach chesed ne'urayich, ahavat kelulotayich, lechtech acharai bamidbar. I remember the love that you had for me. You left everything to come to the desert, to follow me. Now I ask you, is that love? Yes. Is that secular love? No. That's spiritual love. You can take a love between a man and a woman, and you can make it very secular and physical and degrade it. You can take dancing at a rock concert, and you can make it totally disconnected from Hashem. Or you can take dancing and use your body and every part of your body, and you can become a beautiful act of avodat Hashem. There is nothing in this world that can't be used to connect with Hashem. You hear what I'm saying? Why is Sukkot Zman Simchatenu? What's with the water? So the rabbis teach us that back on the second day, Hashem split the upper waters and the lower waters. And you know, water is very basic. You drink water and you wash with water. And the lower waters turned to Hashem, and the lower waters said, I also want to come close to you, Hashem. Anan ba'i l'meheve kame malka. I also want to be connected to you, Hashem. So on Sukkot, on a holiday where we dance for Hashem, on a holiday where we eat for Hashem, on a holiday where we sleep for Hashem, where we go out of our comfort zone and we can be in a hut. What we're really saying is that every part of our life can be connected to Hashem, and that's Simcha. I want to read to you something. It's quite remarkable. You heard of Silicon Valley up in Northern California? You heard of that, right? Heard of that. I'm sure you heard of that. Silicon Valley. A simple statistic. Simple statistic, if I may.
I lived there for 27 years, so...
Okay. I know that. Yeah. I don't know if I have in front of me the sheet of paper. I'll have to tell you outside. There's a fellow by the name of Stephen Kaplan who did a little bit of analysis of what's going on in Silicon Valley. And he said the average comfortable lifestyle requires about a $10 million type of net worth to be able to be really comfortable in Silicon Valley. And then there's another guy by the name of Adam Strasberg. And he's a psychiatrist. And he describes what it's like to be a psychiatrist in Silicon Valley. And he said, I live in a place where psychiatrists are in very short supply. My time is of a premium. There's a great demand for my time. He said, multimillionaires, stressed out multimillionaires, come to my office every hour on the hour. And I can tell you, I sit in my chair, I have 2 old goldfish in my tank, and I sit and I listen to the stress and the woes of multimillionaires every hour on the hour. And I can testify to you that being successful has very little connection to being happy. That being successful has very little connection to being happy. What is the yesod, the foundational idea of simcha? What is Zman Simchatenu about? What is the essence of this concept? So let me read to you the end of the Rambam. This was pointed out already, and then I'm going to end. The Rambam writes that David HaMelech, the great King David, the leader of the world, when he was the king, that when they brought the Aron back from the Plishtim, when they brought it back all the way to David HaMelech, to Yerushalayim, David danced, and he danced like crazy. And his wife, Michal, who herself was royal, the daughter of Shaul, she turns to David and she says, how honorable is the king of Israel that he's looking like just one of the simple Jews. She was upset. She was very upset. I know it's hard to imagine that a wife would criticize her husband, but try to imagine that for a moment or two. No man laughed at that joke, then I know it's very late at night. Okay.
We're laughing on the inside. We're not
on the inside. I know. That's it. Okay. We close the mechitza. I'll say the joke again, and we'll go good. So listen to what the Rambam says. Hasimcha sheyismach adam ba'asiyas hamitzvah uba'avas hakel avoda gedolehi. The simcha that a person has to engage in when they're doing mitzvahs and loving Hashem, it's a big job. V'chol hamonea atzmo misimcha zu, if you hold yourself back, it's not good. And if a person thinks they're too big for that, v'chol hamagis dato v'chol lekavod la'atzmo. So it's beneath my dignity. Umiskabed be'einav, people are looking at me. It's not right for me to look that way. Chote v'shote, he's a sinner and a fool. V'chol hamashpil atzmo umekel gufo, if you lower yourself, quote unquote, and you degrade yourself in the eyes of Hashem, you are hagadol hamechubad haoved me'ahava v'chein David melech Yisrael amar unikalosi od mizos v'hayisi shafal be'enai. And David HaMelech said, Halavai, I'd have more opportunities. Zman Simcha Seinu of Sukkot is the simcha not only of learning Torah. It's not only the simcha of davening. It's the simcha of eating like a Jew. It's the simcha of dancing like a Jew. It's the simcha of sleeping like a Jew. It's the simcha of wherever you go in life, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with you. In Silicon Valley, you can have whatever you want. But you can be very distant from the Ribono Shel Olam. You can have everything and nothing at the same time. I was walking a few hours ago, I was walking down the alley by Robertson, between Robertson and Livonia. I was walking down the alley to go to the Beit Knesset. And there was a guy there, not a Jewish fellow, and he was smoking and he had a tattoo. And I was walking, I looked like a rabbi, I had a hat on, whatever. And I said hello to him, and he says hello. He goes, do you mind if I ask you a question? I said, sure. I was sure he's going to ask me for money. I explained to him, I don't have money on me, whatever, He didn't ask me for money. He was smoking, he's in a different world. He said, my father is dying. My father is dying. What should I pray for? How should I pray? I thought to myself, it's interesting. Why is he coming to me? What's it? Because the world knows that the Jews live with purpose. The world knows. The world is very complicated. It's moving very quickly. Like they tell that story about the guy who's like, guys never ask for directions, so he's like on the highway 80 miles an hour. His wife says, do you know where you're going? And he says, I have no clue. She goes, why are you going so fast? So he says, I have no idea where we're going, but wherever we're going, we're going to get there in a hurry. The whole world is going very, very quickly, but they have no idea where they're going. And comes the Torah and says, whatever you do in life, understand it's all connected to Hashem. Who doesn't have problems? Who doesn't have challenges? The Vilna Gaon teaches us your challenges are tailor-made for you to bring out your greatness. Borei nefashot rabot v'chesro nan. Hashem created you with weaknesses in order to become great. You see, it's very easy to talk about simcha when life is good, when you're on Yom Kippur, when you're in Shabbat, when you're in the Beit Knesset. We're about to leave that. We're about to go into regular life, into regular daily life. And what's going to happen? We're going to have all the challenges of life once again. If you remember that Yiddishkeit, that Yahadut is about bringing every part of your life into Hashem's world, then you know what? It might not be easy, but it'll be full of simcha. Let me leave you with this story. Simple story, but a powerful story. Very not a happy story, but a powerful story. There was a very special Jew, a very special person who shared this story. That his friend was in a very difficult marriage, and his wife asked him to leave the house, correctly so. And they were at the therapist's home, at the therapist's office. And the therapist is looking at them, and it's a very difficult time, and finally she turns to him and she says, I thought about it. I forgive you. I understand where you're coming from. I forgive you. And he's so happy. He's so thankful. And he says, oh, wow, it's great. I'm going to move back next week. It'll be great. So she says to him, move back? No, you're not moving back. He said, understand. I thought you forgave me. She said, I forgive you. But I'm not interested in living with you again. I forgive you. But I'm not interested in living with you. You see, Yom Kippur is Mechila. Sukkot is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm back with you. Sometimes people say, forgiveness, that's all I want is forgiveness. We don't want forgiveness. We want a relationship with Hashem. We want a reconciliation with Hashem. We want to live with Hashem in the daily. That's what we want. Yehi Ratzon, we should merit that we should be able to not just daven with Hashem in mind, not just learn with Hashem in mind, not just make brachot with Hashem in mind, but we should embrace our challenges. We should eat. We should walk. We should think. We should, whenever we are in every part of our life, think, what is the right thing? What does Hashem want from me at this moment in time? It's a totally different type of life. It's a life of simcha, because simcha means you're lifnei Hashem. That's what Sukkot is the model for, living with Hashem. Not just learning, but living with Hashem. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we should merit that in all aspects of our life, if we keep that in mind, that all of our life will be one big Zman Simchatenu. Thank you for listening. You should go Michayel Chayel from strength to strength.
What time are we going to have